Hey, what's up, everybody? Keith here. And I want to pop right in and give you all a little reminder that we have merch. The description will be in our or the link will be in our description. I believe I've done that multiple times. The link will be in the description, and we've got really cool shirts. Be on the lookout for a contest probably in the next month or so, where you may even be able to win the item of your choice from our website. Um, we might be looking to add some other things on there at some point too. But right now, man, we got hoodies, we got sweatshirts, we got t-shirts, we got muscle tees. And speaking of t-shirts, man, I am rocking the Christian Shields Fall Like Rain shirt. Christian Shields is a friend of the show. Him and Marshall Benson have been on in the past. And Fall Like Rain is their new single. It's freaking killer, man. It's got really cool, like epic 80s vibes. Um, it reminds me of Dokken in Europe and like something like that. It's a great song. So definitely go check that video out. And get ready for this really cool, chill conversation that I had with Jesse Ray Smith. He kind of clarified some stuff with me about music production, and we talked about putting songs together and fan reactions and really cool stuff like that, man. So enjoy the Jesse Ray Smith interview. Guy's really talented, um, and definitely deserves your ears. So check him out, buy his stuff, buy our stuff, buy Christian Shields stuff, support independent artists, man. Let's do this thing. All right. Y'all enjoy this episode of Most Excellent Entertainment. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Most Excellent Entertainment Podcast. And I'm your host, Keith. Our guest this week is a singer-songwriter, an instrumentalist from California, Mr. Jesse Ray Smith. Welcome to the show.
All right. Thanks, Keith, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to have you on. So I just I guess I want to kind of do the interview in sort of an order, but before we even start with that, I just want to say your music is a lot of things, man. Like, I was listening to it, and at first I got like a California vibe, like Mamas and Papas type thing, and then there was like an alternative country sort of vibe, and then like country music, you know. Um, and I think the thing that holds it together is your voice. Like, your voice is very, very cool and very smooth. Um, so when you play these different sort of styles, like, what's the thinking in that? Like, instead of just playing country music or just playing, Sunshine California pop, like, what is it that kind of gets you playing all these different kinds of music?
I mean, the simplest answer is that I like all that kind of music,
Right on.
and I think I guess I try not to overthink it too much when I'm writing. It's like it's kind of just whatever is inspiring me at the time, and then I start I kind of, when I write songs, like all in my mind, I kind of like get into the character of the song.
Okay.
And so I think that maybe a difference for other artists is like they're just kind of in the character of themselves. And and so, I think a lot of times when I'm recording, it's like the what feels natural to me is whatever that original character was that I was writing through in the moment.
Nice.
You know, so it's just it's pretty tough for me to get out of that. And I remember as a kid when I was growing up, you know, uh, my mom, she has this thing where she would like when she would meet somebody, if they had a different like accent than her, she would kind of like change her voice to sort of like mimic their accent. And I always thought that was kind of weird. I was like, why are you doing that? Why are you changing your like just talk normal, you know what I mean? As a kid, that's what I would think or you know, maybe even said to her. But now it kind of like makes sense to me. I it's you know, it's like I think some people they sort of their sound and their thing is always one way, and other people it kind of changes, you know, a little bit from the like to what they're experiencing, you know. And so for me, the experience is like inside the song.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I'm always myself, but I do that. I talk differently around different people. I've
Yeah.
known my whole entire life, and there's nothing I can do about it. Like it's just, yeah. I've tried to have one voice, doesn't work. It,
I don't think one way is right or wrong. I just think there's kind of there's two styles and
yeah,
it's like you're either one or the other. And if you you know, I think it might be maybe a more effective artist style to be the kind that is always the same because then it allows people to just sort of find that thing. But if that's not your style, I just don't think it's something you can necessarily. I mean, if you try and force that, I think you're kind of maybe doing yourself a disservice because like I like so many types of music and I feel a different thing when I sing it and it makes me sound different, you know?
yeah, yeah. Um, I have kind of a funny story ish. Like in the '90s, I thought I was gonna be a rock star, but
Sure.
I write like very different genres of music, and that wasn't really something you could do back then. I talked to a guy who wanted to represent me, and he said, you know, you have to find one sound. But I think with the internet now being kind of its own record label, you can put out whatever you want, and you can see what people like, and you don't necessarily have to just focus on that one streamlined sound, which I think is cool. It makes things more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. I still think it's a little bit easier
Sure.
for people when they because let's just go down that path there for a second. It's like you put out a song like I have one called Lone Wolf. That's probably like the most country. It's more I would say it's maybe more Southern rock, but it's the most country song that I have. And if that if I push that out to the world through all the channels I can access on the web and people grab onto that and they go and they start following me through whatever channels they find it through and then the next song I put out sounds like California whatever, you know, pop or whatever and I push that and they go and they hear that they might be like, "Oh man, I really liked that thing that I heard the first time." And so they at that point that connection might be severed, you know. They might just sort of whereas if something reached them that was the same, they'd be like, "Oh, yes, I love that sound." And then you're getting a fan that goes a little deeper down that rabbit hole. So I think you it definitely does, you know, kind of it can disturb those relationships that you build. But then like some people, you know, they might hear the one thing and then they hear the next thing and it's something they connect to in your voice, like you were saying. And the style, they're just like, man, this is cool too. I just sort of dig this guy's thing. And so that's been, you know, I think the people that connect to me, that's usually the feedback I get is I just like everything you put out. And and I just you always wonder though, would the growth be a little quicker? You know, you just never know, man. You just never know.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things too, um, that I noticed is the styles don't vary much from album to album, and not that people really focus in on albums these days. I noticed the real stylistic changes when I listened. I made a playlist and kind of bounced it around and listened to the different, and that's when I was like, oh wow, he really does a lot of different stuff. So I think like if people were to discover you right now, they would hear the work on the new album most likely, and then they'd be like, okay, so this is what he does, and then maybe explore deeper later. Um,
Yeah. Wait, so just let me understand what you're saying. If they were to hear the new stuff and go to a previous record and then they are bouncing around through a previous record, it would still hold up like that. There's different styles within a record,
right.
but the overall sound, it kind of carries over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I feel like that is yeah, that's kind of how I feel like it is too. So that's good that it's being received that way.
Yeah, yeah, because I feel like, um like the first the album you've got out right now really reminded me of like 70s California rock, a lot. 60s, 70s California rock. And and then I got hooked on it. I love that kind of music. So I was like, okay, this is freaking great. And
Cool.
so since I had already decided I like this guy and I like what he's doing, the stylistic changes on the other albums didn't we're like, whoa, what is he,
Yeah.
Whereas if it was all from one album to another, or I mean, all on the same album, it might be a little harsher. But I
Mhm.
also take in albums, and I don't know how many people do that these days, unfortunately. You know,
Sure.
but but so let's back up a little bit and just find out where this whole thing started. Like, when did you realize you could sing? What made you want to pursue music? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, it happened it happened really young for me. I mean, I'm almost getting to the point where I can't remember a time that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to go back to the very first moment. I mean, I know when I was when I was about 10, I mean, I used to sing a lot. My mom and I would sing a lot. Like when I was a kid. I remember songs like, and she had a piano in the living room. And so that was like there was a lot of music. She sang she passed when I was in high school. So like that's why I'm saying she was all this stuff. But uh, my connection to her was all musical, pretty much. That was the main positive thing that we had. And she introduced me to singing. She was a aspiring singer. And then my dad actually, I remember, you know how like when you're in school, they give you an instrument. You kind of like you start a recorder and then you go to fifth grade and then you get to pick one. I picked trumpet and I was like not very good at trumpet. Like I was trying and it was like squeaking and it was just terrible. And my dad, he one day came over to me, he goes, "Hey man, listen, trumpet's kind of for pussies, bro. Let's like," and he and he hands me a guitar and he's like, "Here, let's start working on this one." So, because he played guitar, but he would like put on records and he would jam along to him. He would just kind of like, and it was all acoustic, and he would just like to play along. So he started showing me some chords so that I could play, and then we could jam together instead of him playing to a record. And so he just started showing me some simple chords, and he couldn't even like really play chords that well, but he knew how to do them. So then it kind of was more motivation for me to learn them because, it's like he can't really do them, but I picked it up quick and I got into it and I loved it. And then I just kind of knew pretty fast that like I started carrying around books and like writing word and trying to get into writing songs.
Yeah.
And that happened like really fast. And then I was like inviting buddies over and we were like trying to figure out songs and playing together. And it was just like it snowballed really fast as soon as I kind of got into it and I could play a few chords.
Right.
And then from there it was all like about writing songs. And then it was like there was a few artists when I was in high school that like their voices I could kind of imitate pretty well.
Mm.
And then I started going to there was like a town near mine that had like a cool downtown area with like string lights and stuff, and people would kind of walk up and down the streets. So I started like sitting on the corner with my guitar and trying to like gain confidence to like play in front of people.
Yeah.
And that was like, towards the end of my high school years. And then I did some like trips in California where I just like cruised around and like tried that in other towns. And so yeah, it was like, and then college, it just kind of kept going, and
Sure.
now here I am.
Man, that's challenging, man. Just setting up on the street and just hoping some people want to stop and check it out, and people are like trying to go shopping and stuff. How what was that experience like? Like, how
Yeah,
grab people's attention, man?
it was cool. I mean, like at first I would pick like some stairs that were in the dark, like away from people because I was a little shy,
Yeah,
and then you get, I mean, I was pretty young. I was probably like 17 or 18. So like you're sitting there and I was playing songs that were new, like popular songs that were like on the radio. So I think what that did is it attracted like maybe like one or two people would stop and come over and they would like sing along and I would, and then you kind of get a little confident. You're like, okay. And then you notice it's like the same song that people do it to every time. And you're like, oh, I do that pretty well. And then you kind of learn more of that artist's stuff. And then, you just kind of are learning and trying. And then you go to a lit area near and do that one first. And then everyone's like in. And then you're like, oh, okay. And now I have their attention so I can play these other songs and they're digging it. So it's just always a learning process, and I feel like it's still the exact fucking same thing. It has not changed. It's literally the exact same process. I set up on a stage, there's like 500 people or there's like 1,000, and it's just like, okay, I'm gonna play a song I've never played before. Let's just see how people respond. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
yeah. So when you got to college and you started playing, did you have a band or did you like go to coffee shops, or how did that work out for you?
So the first time I did like I had a buddy just going back to high school. I had a buddy just after high school that I started writing with, and we were getting into like kind of creating early forms of like what a band, is. We were more into like Dylan and like folky kind of harmonized stuff. And so we would go to open mics. So it definitely started at open mics. And that's where I got my first taste of like getting up on a stage and like getting applause and like feeling and having to like nail a song that I learned and stuff like that. And then in college, I started a band with a guy that was on like some sort of like student council.
Okay.
He played drums and he was just kind of eager beaver style. He was like all over. And so we started this band. We put together, we had a group of like 4 or 5 guys, and he booked a show for us. And it was our very first show was playing at a John Kerry rally. It was like a political rally. And there was
Okay.
like 2,000 people. And and it was weird. There was like Secret Service. They had like their earpieces on and they had to like carry our instruments out there and like check everything before. And we had to be able to carry everything on and off the stage in one trip. So he like made this weird drum rig. He was an engineer, so it was like this where he could stand, and he was like 6'8". So it was like this weird contraption. It was a trippy experience, but like, we just went out, we played like 5 songs. We played one of them was an original, and so that was kind of first taste, and then it was just yeah, it was kind of like whatever we could do. There was like a venue on campus that we played a couple shows. And I've heard audio from those shows and they weren't great. They were what they were. And then you learn, you play parties, college parties. And then after college, it started to get more serious. We like assembled like new group of guys that were all pretty serious. We wanted to like see if we could pay rent and all like live in a house off of just music and stuff like that. And then we started to become like the cool band in town. We would play a lot. We were playing like, a couple nights a week. There was this one venue that it was a bar, but it could hold like 300 people. And so it started to be if it was a Friday or Saturday and we were playing that place, there'd be a line like down the block. And and that was like a lot, mostly covers.
Mhm.
We would play, they'd pay us well. This was around like 2007 or 8. And then like we'd have after parties at our house. And we would do that you know, every week we'd be doing one or two of those. So it became a thing. And then I just that I did that for a few years. It established like I actually met my wife doing that, and then I moved to the Bay Area and started over fresh. New band, same thing, same type of music, just a whole new scene, new vibe, whole thing. Then that about the same amount of time went by, moved back to San Diego and started over. And now here I am. I'm like another 6 years in or whatever, 5 years in, which is about the time that the other bands lasted. And this one, it's like it seems like it's cruising and it's going well. And I'm kind of doing things the way that I always sort of wanted to do them. But what I found is like when you're with a group of guys and you want it, you got to kind of either set it up where like everybody's voice is equal, or you got to set it up where one guy is kind of in charge, which would, and then this now it's like now it's sort of the other style. It was always like equal voice, and that gets really tough after a while because everybody wants to try different stuff to make it improved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so you have had some pretty big success as far as independent artists. Like you're nominated for some awards and the San Diego Awards this year, and you've got like I can't remember the exact number, but you've got like a pretty impressive Spotify following.
Yeah,
Um,
it fluctuates, man. It goes up and down. Spotify numbers are weird. They're like, I'm like I'm always learning as much as I can about all that stuff,
right.
but it just I don't know how much it means anything.
Yeah, fair. Because I don't really understand how it works with the podcast, to be completely honest. Like, it'll say that some weeks it'll say I have 900 people listening, and then other weeks it'll say I have three, but the feedback is always the same. So I don't get it. It's weird.
Yeah, I think Spotify wants it that way. I think they want to leave us all in the dark so that, you know, it's like they don't give us access to any of the people that follow us. It's like that's not cool. It's like, we're slaving away trying to reach people. And and I feel like the whole numbers game on the Spotify platform, which if you go over to iTunes, it doesn't show any numbers. So on Spotify, I feel like the whole point of that is just to try and get people to, like spend money on their platform,
Sure,
you
sure.
know?
Yeah, yeah. They're like, you get this and you can be featured and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, I don't know. I'm always working on, trying to, because I just don't feel like anybody really has any answers, man. I feel like the people who claim or appear to have answers, they're just trying to piggyback off of people that have figured it out, really, is what's going on. It's like if you can figure out and sometimes figuring it out just means doing something great and it catches fire, right? That's like the romantic thing about the music industry is like if you do something that is really truly unique and you speak a novel voice and you say something that hasn't been said a certain way, then like yeah, we all believe that that kind of stuff catches fire and I think it really does. But that's like that doesn't happen every day and even if so let's just say that that can happen.
Yeah,
There's still a lot of artists that are making really good livings, saying the same stuff but in their own creative way that is not like totally novel, but it's still interesting and people really like that particular way. So okay, so they have a good fan base, but now like you have to find a way to take what you have and make it as big as possible, right? Reach as many people as you can. And I just think that all the avenues out there are just constantly changing. And it's like, it's anybody's best guess, and everyone's just clawing away. And if you can do it, then everybody else wants to jump on and be like, ah, see, I told you so. And then
yeah,
you're like, man, I just spent all this energy 5 years figuring that out. And now it's like, you know, then what do you do with it? Is like anybody's best guess. So that's to me,
yeah,
that's the like industry in a nutshell is my take on it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, with podcasts, it's all about monetization, and they tease you with it, dude.
Yeah.
Like you have to hit a certain number for a certain amount of months before you can get monetized, or maybe it's weeks, I don't know. But then like you're almost there, and then the next week you fall off and you don't quite hit it. So then you push some more, and it's weird, man. I've kind of given up on it. In the beginning, I was looking at the numbers, like studying them hard, and now I just kind of glance at them. As long as people seem to be reacting well to what I'm doing, and especially the people who I'm talking to, uh, I want to have good conversations, and I think the good conversations will eventually grab people. So that's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Cool, man. Well, and just a little feedback from that angle, like, I get people hitting me up about doing this kind of stuff, and I go and I listen to the channels, and like just like the conversation, or just like what we were talking about earlier, how you know some people's voices are what they are, and other people's voices they sort of change to the with your conversation style. It's sort of, I feel like we're like behind the curtain, you know what I mean? And I think that's cool, man. That's really cool. It's like you kind of give people a natural license to sort of like loosen up and just talk candidly, and it doesn't feel like really, like you sort of got to stick to a script and stuff like that. And I think that that's a cool, just a different type of conversation. And so that's why I was interested in coming on here and talking to you, is like, there was that one band. I actually checked them out. I had never heard of them. They were from the East Coast.
oh, crap.
90,
Yeah.
what are they called?
Was it White Trash?
Yeah, man. I never heard of that band. And I went and checked them out. They were so cool. And like, that was a really cool interview that you did with that guy.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Dave was really cool, man. I loved White Trash in the early '90s to the mid '90s. I mean, you could tell from the interviews. So
Yeah,
yeah, getting to talk to him was freaking awesome, and the fact that you know he was a good guy and he was kind of recognized his own faults, which I thought was fun.
sure.
It was a good time. But I did want to ask you something too. Like, so when I was in the studio, the producer sang this super high harmony, and he said that it would brighten my voice, and he was right. But I don't think a lot of people know that trick. So when I was listening to your music, your voice is very bright, and I couldn't tell if it was a subtle harmony or if that's all you. So I'd like to know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I don't really I do harmonies sometimes, but a lot of times the harmonies on most of the stuff that's, this record and the previous one are Sean, yeah, the guy who I write with. Um, so when you say my voice is bright, can you describe what that means? Because that could mean a couple different things.
So I mean, it's just I'm trying to explain it. Like it's sweet sounding, Like I can't really. Oh man, it's like a feeling. It's not as much, but yeah, it's like sweet sounding and smooth and like not gruff, not like and my
Yeah.
voice is kind of growly, so he put that underneath me to add that sweetness to my voice. Which
Yeah.
wondering if that's something that you naturally have, or if you kind of have a trick to make it sound that way. Like
No, I mean, I would say that I'm like constantly working on my vocal tone.
yeah,
Always. It's like I'm always, thinking about the way and just kind of making little tweaks. And I think uh there were times where I would like sort of push more volume of air to smooth it.
hmm
And I don't really do that anymore. Now it's like a lot of singing with like pretty quietly. Like I don't really like to I think I talk actually a lot louder than I actually sing.
sure,
And um and I think that I like to sing I prefer singing through a microphone now with amplification, because I've gotten so used to kind of like using the like the space that comes through like a speaker, and you add a little reverb, and then you kind of can get inside of that. It's like you get this little kind of air around your voice, um and so the nuances of volume, like volume it really is a big it's a really big tool when you're singing. Like when you sing, if you're singing, if you kind of set your volume, it's kind of like talking to kids. Like, I don't know if you have children, but I got kids, and like, if you talk to them when you set your volume, if you kind of keep that steady, when you raise your volume, they're gonna like listen all of a sudden. But if you're constantly flopping all over the place and then you raise your volume, they're just gonna keep doing what they're doing. They're not gonna hear any difference. And then if you lower it, that's going to have a different effect. And so the singing is like really similar. It's like you sing a song, you kind of get and you lock into the volume that is one for that song. And when you want the audience to like pull in and feel the gravity of something, you bring that volume down actually. You
Oh, okay.
get
Interesting.
quiet. Yeah, you get a little, you kind of like, and that, it like really makes it lands. Like I feel it landing in me. I feel like, oh man, I just like, I really went deep on that. And a lot of it, what it is it's volume. And like, and so I started to kind of figure out those little tricks, and it almost used to be the opposite when I was young. I was like, man, I really want people to feel this. And I would sing louder. And it kind of has the opposite effect. It almost makes people like turn away because you're forcing it at them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that actually, man. So if you think about like breakdowns, like the bridge, it always gets quieter most of the time. Not maybe not always, but like when it means something, it gets a little quieter. And like if you're trying to end a song on like a heavy note, you get quieter. Like that, I never thought about that before, man. That's
Yeah, it's really simple shit. You only got a few parameters you can mess with.
right.
It's like your volume, your reverb sort of sets the space, the size of the space you're in. The panning left to right, it kind of like, this is more like mixing stuff, but it does translate to live, it really does when you kind of get on a stage and you're trying to like bring a sound that allows people to connect with it. When a sound sounds good,
Yeah.
then it's like people they open up. They really, and like a lot of times, like I do some shows that are where it's not always like a ticketed show where people are fans and they come. Like I do some shows too where I'm like in the background.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
like those shows because it's similar to playing on the street, right? Like nobody's invested. They don't
Yeah.
have to like you. So you get a better set of feedback. You get feedback from them that you don't get from your ticketed people. So like, when you play something at like a background show that is totally like locked in and the volume and you get inside that song and you don't overpower it with the vocals and you pull the people in even when
Mhm.
they're not listening and they're not that looks like they're engaged in their own thing, they can't help it, dude. They kind of start to get pulled away and then they start to like and then they start to like point and they're talking and it's like you're watching, you're getting these little cues and you're like, okay, that's the sweet spot. You know what I mean? And that kind of stuff, it just all adds up and it's kind of that's my like testing ground. That's where I figure out what works and it doesn't. And then that stuff goes into the songs when I write.
That's awesome. That is very, very cool, man. It's funny because Dramarama is my favorite band.
Cool.
I mentioned that multiple times on the show. But when you talked about that, I started thinking about anything, anything. It's a very bombastic song, like it's their biggest hit. But then when you get to that bridge, it's just the bass and it's just
Hmm.
on telling his story and it gets real serious, you know? And it's just like, man, that makes so much sense to me now. I
Yeah, and man, if you go listen to, that's the other thing I've noticed with bands. Every band I've pretty much ever played in, it's like if you let's say you want to have the band learn to cover for
yeah.
a show, there's pretty much no bands that will learn that cover as simple as the recording.
Hmm.
The recording is almost always simpler than the way a band will play it.
Yeah.
And that's like just because you have an instrument in your hand, you don't actually need to play it. Like the song, in the same way that when you bring the volume down and it pulls people in, if you take instruments away and you allow people to really hear the instruments and stuff like that, it also pulls them in. So, simpler, I feel like is one of the hardest things to obtain in
Yeah.
performance because everybody just wants to have fun. They all want to play and they don't want to feel naked when they're standing there with their instrument not doing anything. But it is the fucking coolest thing just about you can do is to stand on stage and let the song just breathe, you know?
I heard a cover of Stand By Me last night, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was released, I mean, it was on a movie soundtrack, but that melody's so good and so easy and so simple. And the woman who was covering it like chopped the song up, and it was so bad. You couldn't sing along to it, even though you knew the words, because it was like, where is she going? Like she was everywhere. And
Oh.
yeah, it was bad, man. And then the way I don't understand how you can take a song that good, and like yeah, I mean, obviously she wanted to do something original and do something new with the song, but it was just like, man, you should have just wrote
Yeah.
the song.
But I mean we've all heard the saying 1,000 times, serve the song.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I remember there was a point in my evolution as a singer where before that point, this is going to sound kind of conceited, whenever I would use the phrase serve the song, it would feel like what I was saying, if I was the one saying it to the band, what I was saying to them was like, make room for me as the singer.
Sure.
But then, like, there came a point where I was thinking to myself, you as a singer also have to serve the song. Like, serving the song doesn't mean, you know, just making the vocals be heard the most. It means that the melodies and the brilliance, a lot of the brilliance of a song is in the simplicity and the greatness of the way that the melodies work with the chord structures and stuff like that, and just the emotion within it. And like you can cloud that up by not serving that when you perform it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that gets to be a complicated thing too, because the person who releases the song and performs it first and the version that gets like embedded in people's souls, that is the song is that's also embedded within the song itself. The song on the paper and the theoretical ideal version of the song that's in the cloud, whatever, the first version that is the stamp of it is part of that ideal version. You have to serve the whole thing, you know what I mean? And anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's rare that you have like like Jimi Hendrix could make any song his song. Like All Along Watchtowers, Jimi Hendrix's song. I mean, I love Bob Dylan, but man, uh and the same with like Hey Joe and Red House and stuff like that, But that's
Yeah.
rare. A lot of times, man, you kind of have to play it straight to not ruin it.
Was Hey Joe a cover?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was an old blues song.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I know, of course, Red House,
Sure,
uh,
sure.
but that's inter I didn't realize. I guess for some reason I always assumed Hey Joe was a
Yeah,
Hendrix song.
yeah. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself later on. But
Cool.
but I was in a band that used to play it, and I swear the credits definitely weren't his. But that was
Okay.
go. I mean, I could be wrong at this point, but
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because I say the original version, but it's also sort of just the version that's accepted by
yeah,
masses as being the, the version.
right, sure, sure,
And
sure.
there's a few examples of that, like even Hard to Handle, which, by Black Crowes, it was originally Otis Redding. I think sometimes, or even that Wagon Wheel, that song that's transcended to be one of the few songs I feel like of like this generation that has become like that one gets added to like the canon of like great sort of classic songbook,
Mhm.
songs that'll sort of carry on in infamousy. That's
Right.
one of the few that have come out, I feel like in the last 15, 20 years or whatever, that have ascended to that level. And it's funny because like the Darius Rucker version is the one that sort of pushed it into that stratosphere. But I
Right.
still feel like when I listen to the old Crow Medicine Show version, it feels like the true song. That feels like more like the song to me.
Yeah. Well, and it's like Jeff Buckley's version of Hallelujah.
Mm.
Um, Leonard Cohen didn't have lyrics for that song. He would just riff it. There's a couple different recorded versions with Leonard Cohen, and the lyrics are different. But now, 99% of the time, when people cover Hallelujah, they sing Jeff Buckley's lyrics, which are also Leonard Cohen's lyrics. He just decided these are the ones that I'm going to use.
I
Uh,
didn't know that. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's really interesting. Um, but yeah, so Jeff Buckley's version kind of became, even though Leonard Cohen's version is like bone chilling, man. I mean, it's not, but
Yeah,
it became the accepted version, which is interesting, I think.
totally.
Yeah. Um, so you talked a little bit about panning and things like that. How involved are you with the mixing and engineering and producing of your music?
Very involved.
Awesome.
Yeah. Uh I studied, some of that stuff in college, and then just enough to give myself confidence to open a recording studio. Um, so I had a recording studio in the Bay Area for 10 years, and I just, I wanted to get as far into that stuff as I could and learn it. And I was never, I would say I was never really like an engineer up to the level that I wanted to be. It's just not my personality.
Right.
Uh, but I learned a lot, and it allowed me to get inside as an artist when I finally got to a point where I was ready to bring a producer on to the team. And I was lucky. I mean, I reached out to the way I always kind of tell the story is like once I knew I was like ready for a producer, someone to take that take the sort of the task of like corralling the band and sort of getting the band to get inside the songs in a way
Right.
where I couldn't, like explain to them what I was hearing. What I did is I picked my three favorite at the time. The criteria was like within the last 5 years, a record that came out, and I love like the sound of the album. So I pulled three off of my vinyl collection, and I just went on Instagram and I just DM'd the producers.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
had recorded recently, that's when I had just recently recorded that song Lone Wolf.
Okay.
And so I sent them like I just uploaded the just the like the board mix from, we finished the session, bounced a recording of it, and I just uploaded that to a private YouTube, and then I just DM'd it to the producers, and I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to mix this." Really just easy. And they all got back to me and they were like, "Cool, man. Yeah, I'm down to mix this, and they all want to get paid. Everyone needs a job. They all need work, right? So great. It sounded really good. Uh, Easy kind of task to get inside that song. It's pretty straightforward, Southern
Yeah.
rock thing. So then I decided to work with Tyler because he lives up in LA. He had a spot up there. He also plays a bunch of instruments, and I didn't have bass on it. So I drove the other guy. One guy he had worked with Brent Cobb uh, down in Atlanta. So that was like going to be, a little bit more of a challenge. And then the other one was this guy Scott Hirsch who had worked in that project Hiss Golden Messenger. They're also like Americana. I dig them. But I decided to go with Tyler. I really liked he was working with an artist named Madison Cunningham, and the sound of that record was spot on to me. So I went up there. We did that song. We followed it up with another couple that he mixed, and then he got to meet kind of my writing partner. And then he was just like, "Look, man, if he got to hear the song catalog, and then it was sort of Then we did the first record. We did another set of sessions that kind of made up part of the new record and part of that first record, and then another whole. So it's been a few years. We've done a couple records. This one that I'm putting out was done with him, but I, I'm like really inside. The production vision is really my vision, and then Tyler helps kind of carry that out. And there's a lot of back and forth. I really respect his opinions on stuff. I'm a little bit more of, I think I lean more towards like rock, kind of like Heartland rock, Springsteen, that side of stuff. Whereas he comes at it more from like an indie folk side. So the way those meet in the middle is like makes this thing that is the way the sound comes out. But um, I'm sending like even detailed mix notes to him, like reverb up 2 dBs and cut out this stuff. And like, that's just my nature is I just like, I like to be inside of stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, it's funny because I actually meant to mention like Springsteen, Mellencamp, and Petty, and in the beginning, and I forgot, which is kind of what happens when you're having a conversation that's not scripted out. But
Sure,
yeah,
dude.
I recognize all that. It's very cool, man. It's I grew up on that kind of music. Like, I remember having a boombox and like walking because I'm 51, so I had a boombox and walking
Oh
around
yeah.
town, listening to all three of those guys, and I heard them in your music for sure.
Sweet.
Yes, this is really cool. So you mentioned going through your vinyl collection. Is it important to you to put out physical media? Or
Yeah,
yeah, okay, cool.
really important for a few reasons. Uh, One, because there's some nostalgia there. Like I also got into music, I think, because of the physical nature, like looking at the lyrics and the books and stuff really pulled me in. I'm a really visual person. There's something about like even to this day, like when I hold a record and I look at it, I feel it go into me in a way that digital just doesn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, People who share that, who also have that experience with music, I just want my music to be received in that way. Um, the other thing is like you just can't fucking sell digital music.
Right, right.
And like, as crazy as it sounds, CDs are still the best way to sell music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the generation of people that are buying it are, it's not like a young demographic, but I don't really know if that matters. I mean, you as an artist, you want to attract a young demographic if possible, but like you can't force that. So, and like honestly, it's interesting because when I'm in places and I'm like talking to somebody about what they're listening to now that's new and they're not young,
Mm-hmm.
if they're into the same kind of music as I am, they're they're talking about the same artists that the
Sure.
young people are talking about anyway. They're talking about like Noah Kahan,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of folky dude from Burlington, Vermont. They're finding the same shit. If
Yeah.
they're into music and they're looking for new stuff, they're still getting it. And it's like I just don't think it matters. You just need to reach as many people as you can with your music. And I've just found like if I run campaigns through Facebook selling CDs or even just like giving them away,
Mm-hmm.
I get more people like coming in the door and buying my shit and becoming fans that way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have almost 5,000 CDs. I have a stereo from 1998. And I love, that's how I prefer to listen to music.
Yeah.
I don't want to carry my music around in my pocket, and like, yeah, whatever. I mean, obviously I will because there's some stuff you just can't get. But I appreciate the resurgence in physical media. Like it seems like more and more artists are making sure they at least put out a record, but there's CDs going out too, and like it's really cool, man. I hope it keeps going, honestly.
I think it will because I think, what I realized as a parent, I got 2 kids,
Yeah.
is that music, the value of music is in the memories.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like when you create memories through music or along like with music, then that music gets carried on because you have, for me, the memories, the important ones to me are like made with my kids. And so I was like, okay, well, I just need to like have music playing. I want them to be super connected to physical media. So we have a record player in our living room
Mm.
and we're always putting on records. My kids put on records. Like this morning, I was learning a song for a show. I had it on my phone while I was making coffee. It was playing, so I was listening to it. And my daughter came in and she's like, Dad, can you turn that off? I want to put on a record. So, all right, fine. Turn it off. She goes and throws on a record and she's 8, you know? And so the thing is like, I think you have a generation that is passing that
Yeah,
experience down to the younger generation, and those memories, they're going to grow up and remember being in their home with their parents, and that was a part of the house. And I think that that's what made it carry on in you and me is that our parents did that with us. So as long as that like is stays as a part of like family culture, then I don't think it's going anywhere.
yeah. When I was a kid, my mom gave me a stack of 45s. And
Nice.
I grew up like listening to the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean and Elvis. Tons of Elvis was in there. It was weird because she didn't like the Beatles, so there was no Beatles. Uh,
Yeah. My
Funky,
dad didn't really like the Beatles either.
yeah, she said they were too like I don't know why she didn't like them, but so I didn't really hear the Beatles until my uncle, who's a musician and loves the Beatles. My grandma gave me some tapes of the Beatles, and I was just like, "Oh man, cool." But I didn't get into them as much until I got older because they just weren't a part of that whole thing. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
I remember every night before my mom went out because my mom would go out. She was kind of a young mom. She would play "Man Eater" by Hall and Oates, and I freaking still love Hall and Oates. I didn't, as a kid, I wasn't putting it together what my mom was getting pumped up for, but it's like but yeah, it's because the memory is of my mom getting ready and dancing and singing it. So like, yeah, it's it's weird how that stuff carries over, man. Um,
Yeah, and like now the digital stuff, it's cool. It allows you to create other kinds of memories, you can do it while you're down at the beach.
mhm.
You can have songs playing, or whatever, and you can be real specific with it. You can be like, whenever we go to the beach, like we always play this one record because it just feels like the beach to us. And then your kids will, like, so I don't know. That's where I come at it from is like with my own music. And I say this to people, and I say this like when I send out my CDs to people and they order them, I have like a little thing I slip in the envelope and it just says like, I want you to create memories with my music,
Yeah,
and that's like, I think that's really what it's all about. Music accompanies memories in a way that it just allows you to like remember important things in your life.
yeah, yeah. I did kind of say I don't want to walk around with my music in my pocket, but I don't drive, and my son and I walk about a half hour to his babysitter and then to my job every night, and so I do play music. And if I'm getting ready to interview someone, I play their music, and I remember like when I was listening to the White Trash stuff that we talked about earlier, he was like, "Who is that?" And I said, "Oh, I'm interviewing this band this week." And he was like, "They're so good." And I was like, and it was like amazing to watch him be like, "Oh, that's so good." So that was really cool. He also liked your music, but not as much
Oh,
as White Trash. But he did.
yeah, White Trash is cool. They're like, yeah, they're so 90s, but in their own, in like, that's what I took from it. I'm like, man, what is it about this band that sounds so 90s?
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
I've never heard them before, and they're like very unique.
Mm,
It's just, it was really cool. It kind of brought me back to like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
sure.
without me even knowing why. I was like, man, I feel like I'm in the Foot Clan, you know, like in their that shot in Ninja Turtles when they're like in the Foot Clan's little hideout and they're like playing pool and you're just like, whoa, this is so cool, man. It's so 90s.
Yeah. Sorry, I had an alarm go off there. Had to turn that off. But yeah, I think it's the rhythms. They've got like very 90s rhythm and even on their second album, which is more of like a funky power pop thing, uh it's the drums, man. The
Yeah.
sound of the drums is very 90s, man. That's,
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
and people don't really understand that like the way that instruments, like that heavy snare and like that's a 90s thing. Like, and people who don't necessarily make music don't get it. They're not like, oh, that's what puts that in the era. You know what I mean? They just don't. But
Yeah.
but
I
you hear
remember having that feeling about synths, keyboard
mm,
synths.
sure,
They
sure.
put the music in the 80s so
Yeah.
heavily, and I think because of, my age when I was young and that 80s sound, it was just like I was a 90s kid, so like the 80s stuff felt old, I think.
Right, sure, sure, sure.
And then as you kind of grow out of that, and then you get to a point where you're like, it's just a tone, like you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just a tone. And it was the tone of the time that everybody emulated because it was connecting with the youth. And
Yep.
so everybody started emulating it. And some people didn't emulate it well. They did like a cheap version, and that's what started to turn people off of it. But then like, there was bands like currently that were going back and doing the good version of the synth stuff. And I was hearing it like, I don't know if you've ever heard that band War on Drugs.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember hearing that stuff and going, it's interesting how that synth tone, it makes me feel like it's both nostalgic from the past, but also like has this futuristic, like almost like Blade Runner quality to it,
Yeah.
where you're in the past, but you're in the future at the same time.
Right.
That's such a weird space to be in. It has a fantasy quality to it because you're not in the moment, but you're also not in either one or the other, past or future. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
weird.
Yeah, the first time I heard Interpol, I could have swore they had started in the 80s. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I was just like, there's no way this band is from, the 2010s or whatever it is. I was just like, I have to have had one of their albums as a kid, and then I was completely wrong. But man, yeah, there's people who have brought that sound back. Oh, who's the band from England? Oh, they sing that song, The Sound. Well, when I'm around. 1975.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very 80s. And the bravery. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So it's it's cool. Like there's a place for everything, and then and some of it'll give you that feeling.
It's just interesting to me how some people, and I've been there, uh, it's like as soon as they hear a particular tone, they're like, nope,
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it,
yeah,
it can't enter. And
yeah.
it's and it's a little dangerous because, being somebody who likes so many styles of music, I just don't have really that many of those barriers. So
Hmm.
I'm just like, oh, I'll try this tone. Oh, I'll do this thing. I'll do that and the other. And I don't even really think I don't have those hard lines as much as maybe I should sometimes. I don't really think about it that way. I just kind of do what feels right for the song.
Yeah, I mean, what grabs me 99% of the time is vocal melody.
Hmm.
Um, I don't really worry about the rest of the song as much, although I do really like driving drum beats.
Me
Um,
too.
that'll get me. But vocal melody and driving drum beats, that's pretty much all I need uh to like a song. It's funny because my son was asking me, I meant to mention this before when we were talking about melodies and stuff. He was asking me the difference between vocal melody and then the melody of the song, and I was trying to explain it to him and how they kind of have to counterbalance each other, and you sing with the melody of the song but you can also sing off the melody of the song, and it was a really cool conversation to test my ability to explain something that's kind of abstract and kind of changes, you know, but it was
Yeah. I don't know if I've necessarily thought about that before. Like,
thought about it until he asked me, and then I was like, oh crap, okay. Let's figure this out. You know?
yeah, I mean, to me, they're kind of the same thing, but I would say that there's a hook,
Mhm.
and the hook can be different than the vocal melody, but there's usually like kind of one central melody that both the hook and the vocal melody are both, you know, they're kind of working off of. Like I one example is there's this one I remember noticing it. There's this John Mayer song where the vocal melody is actually a harmony of the hook melody.
Sure, sure, sure.
And so the song starts and there's a melody that that comes in like right from the beginning. I think it's either guitar or something or keys. And then when he sings, he's singing he's singing basically an exact harmony of that line
Yeah.
as the main vocal melody. And then when it gets into the chorus, I think the vocal melody maybe just switches to what that first melody line is.
Right, right. And I actually showed Casey something, that's my son, where like you were saying, the melody of the song is established in the beginning, and then when the vocal melody comes in, he's kind of singing in between the melody of the song. I can't remember what song it was, but it was really interesting to show him that. And I was like, you can do it this way too. And as long as it doesn't contradict it or sound bad, it's really cool. Um, so yeah, it was fun to like break that down for him. And he writes songs, but he's really, really shy. He's got a really good voice, but he's more of an athlete. Um, but
Yeah.
even when he goes out and plays basketball, he doesn't want to do really well because when he gets complimented, he gets embarrassed. So even though he can play like so well, when he's practicing, when he goes out with the team, he goes like half what he can usually do, and it's like I got to figure out how to get him to accept the fact that he can be good at stuff. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a challenge of being a parent. I think it's, you know, my little one's into soccer. My daughter,
Yeah,
it's a, you know, she's and I think part of it is like what I found is like there's that fear of failure that
mm,
everybody has. Some people they're like a little bit more immune to it, but um what I did to break through that and she like got it pretty quickly was when there was the moment where she started to seem really excited about the game. Like
yeah,
she scored a goal, which was a big feat in and of itself.
right, right.
And then right after that, she was like in this Mario powered up mode where she was like totally in control. Like she was
Hey,
just like stealing the ball and like it was nobody could tell her, say no to her.
right,
And so I just keyed in on that. I was like, I made sure that to like us get her to feel like what that feeling was and like fix that moment in her so that like anytime I would reference it, she could feel that feeling and like access. And anytime it would happen again after, I'd be like, there it is, you're powered up. You know, so that and then it became a little bit more like accessible to her. But yeah, getting over that hump, man, is tough. It's like
definitely.
fear's a fucking killer.
Yeah, yeah, dude. So I did wanted to ask you this too. We'll wrap up pretty soon. I think we're over an hour at this point, but I did want to ask you, because we've mentioned our kids a couple times. As a working musician, and someone who goes on tour, even if it's like just mini tours or whatever, what is it like to balance that between being a father and a husband and a working musician?
Yeah. It's a challenge and it requires a lot of faith from the people around me
Yeah,
and like trust and I think it also, you know, it's I think where that comes from is they like really believe in what I'm doing. And that wasn't necessarily always there, you know? It's like there was a time where I was an amateur musician and I wasn't making my full living off of music. And I think at that time for me to say like, oh, I'm gonna go on a tour, it would have been a little harder of a
Yeah.
thing to do because it's like it almost comes off as like it's a pipe dream or it's like a you haven't proven it. But then when you get to a point where you're like you're making a living that is contributing to the family enough where like it's it's needed and it's sustainable and like the family works and me and I got to go out and do my part and make a living. Well, understanding that like there's also dreams of where this thing can get to, and growing a business is just as much a part of owning a business. And that means like, getting out and spreading it. And I think people understand that kind of stuff. And when they see you doing it and you've been doing it for a few years, so it's working, then it's like now you got a team behind you. And like that's what support really is, you know? And like my wife is kind of a hard ass. She's like, but I come to realize that, support doesn't mean people just saying that you're great. It
Right.
comes from people saying that you can be better. And it comes from people like, like being honest
Yeah.
and like, you know, and being willing to figure out how the kids are going to be watched when you're gone. Like that's real support, you know? And so um, it's a team for sure. We got help from my in-laws and they help watch the kids a lot. And yeah, man, we're just, doing it while we can. And
Nice.
if it dries up, it dries up, and then I'll move on.
Yeah, for sure. Right on, man. Um, yeah, and I think people don't really realize like caring enough to tell someone what they need to change is important, especially when you're surrounded by people who are just like, "You're so good, you're so great, keep doing this," you know. But when someone can go, "Hey, maybe if you tweak this a little bit," you know, so that's cool, man. That you
Yeah,
have.
it
Um,
is really important. I always try when I kind of sometimes slip into a mentorship role from time to time with
sure.
artists that sort of seek me out, and I try and get into those conversations as quick as I can because I feel like if you establish early on, you know, your opinions on stuff you that you don't think are as strong
Hmm.
for that, if that stings a little bit and the artist really does value your opinion and they really do want to try and grow, then those moments are where they're going to implement, like they're going to start to grow around that thing because they're going to hear what you're saying and they're going to know it's true. And and then like when you do compliment them and you tell them something is fucking awesome, it's going to mean something because they're going to know you're not just saying that to try and, make them feel good. So yeah, I agree.
Sure, definitely, man. Um, so before we head out, what kind of stuff do you have going on? Where can people find you? Um, all that kind of stuff. Just whatever you've got to say, man. Go for it.
Sure, dude. Big thing. I've got an East Coast little tour coming up next week. Um, got an opportunity to play on a nice big stage in Burlington for their Independence Day Fest, which is like one of their bigger events of the year. So that'll be nice,
Yeah.
walk on stage in front of a few thousand people. Um, and then gonna head down to Jersey for a little private fan show, backyard thing, which will be great. So yeah, just right now I'm in a place where I'm really just taking opportunities that come um and musically I've got the first half of my new album is out digitally. I'm working on getting the vinyl printed, so I'll have some physical stuff for that within the next couple months, and then I'll put out the second half of that digitally, which I think that's a cool way to do it. You know, it encourages people to get the physical stuff and shows that that matters to me. And then I've got a bunch of I'm sitting on like a pile of stuff that needs, I'm like starting to get ready to get back into writing. So that's great. I'm excited for that. Uh, and, you know, and then just doing what I can as a professional musician to find ways to grow my kind of empire. I've got a new company that I'm about to launch called Music by Eras that I'm working with a bunch of my close friends, and that's going to be like a talent pool that that kind of gives musicians an opportunity to make a living. And I've been working on that this whole year, so I'm excited to get that. It's going to come out within the next few weeks.
Awesome, dude. I definitely want to check that out, man.
Cool.
Because always looking for new good stuff, you know?
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so before we hop off here, I've got a couple things. July, at first I was like, oh crap, we're not booking anybody. And now July is looking pretty good. As an amazing coincidence, Kickstand Jenny has a new single out. They were our very first guests, and they are going to be our very first guests of our second year, which is so freaking cool. It just worked out that way. So
Sweet.
they're starting both of they started our first year, they're going to start our second year. So I'm psyched about that. We're also going to be doing, I'm not really sure how to describe it, but because I don't want to call it a tribute. I guess just in episode 4, David Roach from Junkyard. He has cancer. Junkyard was a very, very important band to me as a kid, and
Mm.
I'm trying to gather up fans and people who've worked with David over the years to just kind of send me some clips and tell me what he means to them and what the music has meant to them. Um, and yeah, and I mean we're gonna talk about the Indiegogo, the GoFundMe, this GoFundMe that they've got up, and try to get people to help David out because man, guy's a warrior, and his fiance is his caregiver. Like, and she, I don't think she was necessarily ready for it, but man, she's stepped up and she's doing it by herself. So it's really that'll be coming up at the end of the month. So yeah, that's the two biggest things. And we've got Jordan Blue coming on. You know how much I love talking to professional wrestlers. So
Nice,
yeah,
dude.
Jordan Blue is going to be on here, man, and I think that she's about to blow up. So that's going to be fun. Um, so yeah, I want to thank Jesse Ray Smith. This has been a killer conversation, man. I've had a great time. Thank you so much. And
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it, dude. Thanks for having me on.
of course, man. And we want to thank Tyler Martin, Emmy Studios, as always. Appreciate you, Tyler. And I want to thank all the fans, or none of the fans, however many people are out there, because I don't know. I want to thank the people who listen and watch every week. Keep telling your friends, keep helping us grow, because I love doing this, you know. And we'll be back next week for more Most Excellent Entertainment.